Hello legends. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to integrate an AI caller into your existing call center or business phone line. So at a high level, the workflow is that a customer is going to be calling your Twilio number. Twilio is going to ping across to an n8n scenario. And within this scenario, we're not actually picking up the phone just yet. At a high level, the scenario receives a webhook, and then we're going to be responding back to Twilio with this webhook response. Now, what we're doing in between those two webhooks are we're checking if it's during business hours, so like the current date and time, and we're checking if the caller is actually a VIP customer because we might want to do some kind of specialized treatment for them, aka we might have a VIP customer support line. And then we're quickly getting an escalation roster in case we need to escalate a VIP customer to someone else. But at a high level, we're then routing over here and we're checking for VIP customers. We might route them to the VIP support line. For anything that is during business hours but is non-VIP, we're going to send it across to our regular support, which it could be Zendesk, it could be Freshdesk, Gorgeous, so whatever like call center software you're using now, or it might even be your regular, like your mobile phone if you're a small business as well. And then the final route is if it's not VIP and it's after business hours, we might connect them directly into our AI agent. And in this case, we're going to be using Retell. And the idea is that these webhook responses are actually still responding back to Twilio. So this original invoking Twilio API call that's going to this n8n scenario, it remains open. It doesn't answer the phone call. It's just waiting on some instructions from this scenario to say, okay, what am I going to do with this phone call? So if we move across over here and just zoom in, the webhook response over here is then sending the call instructions across to Twilio, like back to the Twilio API call. And it's basically saying, cool, forward that call to our VIP support team. And it just gives a phone number to Twilio to call. So basically it's just connecting up the lines. Or we're giving out our Zendesk phone number or our Retell AI Agent phone number. Now for this video, we're then going to be building it. We're going to be building out the Retell AI Agent. So I'm going to be showing you how to introduce a very basic agent. It's just a single prompt agent, but I'm going to be showing you how to get the phone number from Retell, how to connect it to your agent, how to actually create the agent so it has a knowledge base, so it can speak about your company, answer general questions about your company. I'm also going to show you how to dynamically escalate the phone call. So if the customer is speaking to the AI and the AI is not able to help, we're going to be able to dynamically retrieve the phone number of who the escalation agent is at that specific time, and then dynamically transfer across to that agent. And then after the phone call is completed, we're also going to be looking at breaking down the transcript and just creating some reporting. So looking at the agent, we're going to be building a very simple AI agent. It's a single prompt. And the high level approach here is that we want to build this as an MVP to test out. So if you're just launching this for your team, I think the most important thing is actually going to be reporting and collecting data. But we're still going to create an experience where if the customer is having a bad, they're unable to answer the questions using the AI, we're still going to be able to escalate the phone call across to a human support agent dynamically. So depending on which day it is, which time it is, we were able to get the phone number of whoever we need to dynamically during that phone call. And then we're able to forward that customer across to that specific human support. And that workflow is facilitated by this basic n8n scenario. Once again, it's just a tool call. It's coming from Retell, going into this n8n scenario. And we're just plugging into a Google Sheet, which is where I have I'm simulating a roster for my support team over here, where I have like days of the week and I have little indicators of, when is everyone working which day of the week. So I know I have to transfer across to them. Realistically, if you have a more sophisticated workforce management tool like Workday or Zendesk or HubSpot, you would just connect it to HubSpot directly. And then you would pull out, who's currently available to take the call. And then the response of this specific node is just a phone number. And if I go back into here, just to explain how that works, the escalation handling process is that we're basically telling the AI if the human wants to speak with an agent, that we first execute that get escalation tool call, which is this tool call over here. And once again, which is this specific process that just plugs into wherever we have our roster of who is working right now. And after they get that phone number, we're then executing the call transfer function. And in Retell, if I just show you how this call transfer function looks, and I'm going to go over Retell a little bit later anyway, but just to kind of close the loop there, we're using dynamic routing, and all we're saying is escalate the call to the number obtained from the get escalation function. So whatever we dynamically pull out from that specific n8n scenario that's connected to our Google Sheets roster or across to our CRM or workforce management tool, we're just feeding that number into here. We don't actually have to define that number anywhere here, and that makes this process super, super easy. Now, I created a video yesterday where I kind of expand on that functionality of the call transfer. So I have over here, for example, if the human wants to escalate or transfer the call to the sales team, to a support team, you can essentially, like, you watch this video and it'll explain how you can build this out to escalate to different teams or to transfer to like different language support. So if you have multiple regions that your call center operates on, you might want to forward the call to like your Spanish speaking support or your French speaking support. So this entire system is super easy. I explain it here. It's a very short video and it'll kind of get you up to speed. And then I'm also going to be showing you how to create the knowledge base. So it's going to be a very simple setup there. And then I'm going to be showing you how to do reporting for your phone conversation. So this agent level webhook, we're going to be basically taking all the call information after the call is complete and sending it across to our n8n scenario. And the n8n scenario is over here. So once again, it's a tool call that goes at the end of the phone call from Retell across to our n8n scenario. We're quickly filtering out for different events from the phone call. So if I look at the Retell API documentation, when we send that phone information across to that webhook, there's actually 3 different events that are sent to that same webhook. So every time a call is started, we get this call started event. Then when a call is finished, we get a call ended event. And then a couple of seconds later, we get a call analyzed event. So the call analyzed is an extension to the call ended. And the call analyzed includes some AI analysis of the phone call. So by default, this includes the sentiment of the call. So if it's like positive, neutral, or negative, and it includes a call summary. Across in Retell, there's actually this section over here that says post-call analysis. Now, the post-call analysis is our way of feeding in extra criteria for that final event that comes from Retell. And for example, we might want to get the customer's name. So we can just create a separate variable and call it customer_name and clearly describe to the AI or to the LLM that's going to be reviewing this phone call and just say exactly what information we need for this variable. So the customer's first name, for example. And then I can just hit save. And now this variable, which is customer name, is actually going to be sent across in this webhook in this event type, which is call analyzed, and it's going to be hitting this n8n scenario. But for our purpose, I'm actually not going to be setting up any custom variables for that post-call processing within Retell. I'm just going to create a separate scenario here because there's, chances are that after the phone call is made, we can actually use this messenger model node in n8n to we have more control of actually like reviewing the conversation. We can kind of do some other tool calls or some other bits and pieces within a workflow to actually extract certain information. Within Retell, we might be a little bit more limited. And the second thing is you probably also want to have an independent post-call workflow because, we're just adding to our Google Sheets here. You could technically just use this node to be directly into your CRM. So you can just update your CRM directly, but you might also want to send like a post-call email or a post-call SMS, and just having the control within the n8n scenario is a lot more valuable, and it's a lot more it just removes any restrictions that you might have if you just try and run that analysis process within Retell itself. So I think that running it in Retell is still very good, but I want to set you up in a bit more of a dynamic way so you can get the scenario and just keep expanding on it for your own personal use case. But like I mentioned before, the overall thing that you want to do here is actually report on what you've built out. So let's say if we just kind of zoom back out to here, let's say for our specific use case, we're doing after hours phone support that's not VIP, so just regular customers. They go across to our AI agent. So we might want to figure out in that reporting, like, what are people calling about? Are the issues resolved on that AI phone call? How many of them had to be transferred across? So we can start measuring the effectiveness of our AI caller. And that's exactly how we're going to be able to modify our prompt, modify our knowledge base to give more information into here. We can modify the prompt to be able to handle like the 15 most common questions that we're seeing that we're getting from the reporting. So that reporting piece is super important. So let's say, for example, for actual calls during business hours, your first line of defense, you want it to be this AI caller. So you run this system for after hours, you build it out, and it becomes more and more effective. And then you're like, okay, now I actually want to plug it in for my regular business hours. So during business hours, again, for non-VIP customers, you want your first line of defense to be this AI caller. So you would plug it into here. And then for your escalation routes, you would just have it going across to your Zendesk, Freshdesk, or whatever your call center software is. You just have it plugging into that number. And you would do that by, once again, going into here and just using the transfer call function. So you might define a transfer call function for Zendesk, and it might be transfer _call Zendesk. And then you would just plug in your Zendesk phone number as if a customer is going to call that directly. So it's super easy to plug these systems in. But that would be a very simple strategy for you to start actually trying to evolve this into something that's going to be handling even more volume and workload, so to make it even more valuable. And then again, the reporting that you want, like if you have a software like Zendesk or Freshdesk, most likely you've got pretty robust reporting. So again, building out that reporting piece for your AI caller, for the one during the business hours, you might be able to try and integrate it somehow into a Zendesk report, or you might just collect the AI phone call report, pull out data from Zendesk, and have like a separate spreadsheet, again, a Google Sheets, for example, that just links up the original AI phone call. It finds out when it was escalated, so it pulls in the Zendesk stats as well. And then you have a unified view of your hybrid AI human contact center. So that's a pretty simple strategy and an approach to start doing more with this AI caller. But yeah, pretty much we're doing that in this video. I'm gonna be going through, showing you step by step all the different nodes in n8n. So I'm gonna have all of this stuff available on my Gumroad, so all the n8n scenarios, you can just go ahead and download that. And you can plug it in yourself and kind of get this rolling. But if you're a business owner or if you're an enterprise and you want some assistance with actually building out this specific piece over here for trialing out an MVP for after hours calls, and then getting a strategy to actually introduce it to your daytime phone as well, feel free to reach out to me. I build out a lot of these systems for a lot of different people. I do a lot of work with Twilio as well. As you can see, I've kind of figured out what is actually a very basic integration and workflow here for managing that phone number using a no-code tool. But that's just because I do a lot of work with Twilio, so I can kind of see these things sometimes. So yeah, if you want help with building this out, I'm going to leave my email in the description of this video, so please reach out to me. Otherwise, let's keep going into the n8n scenarios. Okay, so across in n8n, I've got the first scenario open, which is the pre-call router. Now, like I mentioned before, this scenario, it basically figures out what to do with the phone call. So when a customer calls the phone number, Twilio takes that phone number and it basically knocks on a door of this scenario and it says, hey, I've got this phone, I've got this phone call, what do you want me to do with it? So it's very important that when we set this webhook, we actually have to set this as, okay, here we are, using respond to webhook node. So we're not immediately responding here. It's by default, it's set to immediate. We want to respond to Twilio using the respond to webhook node. And that's what this is over here. This is all respond to webhook. And within here, the only thing that we're doing, I'm going to open this up, is we're actually using a specific structured response back to Twilio, which is what they expect, which basically just, you can say a dynamic message on that phone call. So like the customer calls up the number, and then while they're waiting, Twilio quickly pings this n8n scenario. And then let's say in this specific workflow, we're going to be transferring to a VIP line. Then whatever we have here, this is what the customer is going to hear first. They call Twilio, it rings for a couple of seconds, then it picks up the phone and says, we're forwarding your call to a VIP line. And then we have this little dial tag over here. And this dial tag, like what's in between here, this is just the phone number that was returned from that previous code block. So again, so if I just zoom out and I check out that code block, so this specific code block just breaks down whatever was returned from this specific Google Sheet. And this Google Sheet, if I open it, it just contains our roster for day by day and which agent's available and their phone number. So what we're doing there is we're returning this entire block of information, and then the code block just pulls out what's the current day and time, or the current day, for example, and then it will pick out, like for example, today is Sunday, so we'll return this entire block. That code block says what's this current day, Sunday, and then it finds who's available on Sunday, and it's VG and his number is 789, for example. But that's how that specific like this function works here. Each of these is that same webhook response. And if I click into here, so for example, if I open this up and let me just zoom in and open up this to see, the same thing happens here. This is going to our general support line. So for example, this dial number is just going to our general support line and we're saying forwarding your call now. But you can change this dynamically to say, either just remove this altogether if you don't want it to say anything, if you want it just to ring and then automatically connect to your human agent or to your support line, whatever you want to do, you can remove this line. But this is the dial to number, which is going to our support line. And then finally over here, our final route was that non-VIP and after hours. So if I just click this open, scroll this down over here, we're just forwarding our call. And then this number here is our AI caller. So as you can see, it's a pretty simple system, but this is the key to unlocking how to introduce an AI phone caller into your existing contact center or business number. It's actually just getting that knock on the door from Twilio, figuring out what we're going to do with that phone call. Like, do we want to forward it to our regular support during business hours? Is it VIP? Is it after hours? Is it, Spanish support? Is it French support? Is it technical assistance? Is it like, however you want to route this, you can kind of get really complex here. And then you're just responding back to Twilio and telling it exactly what to do with that phone call that's being received. Now, the next flow that I want to look at is the check availability support flow. Okay, so across in Retell, we have this get escalation tool call. And if I just open this up, basically what we're doing over here is we're defining the tool name. The description of this function is pretty simple. It's just for us to get the human support phone number. And then we're plugging in our URL into that n8n scenario. Now I'm using the test version of this, just so when I execute this, you can actually just see how it looks within n8n. But you have to be mindful that when you deploy your scenario in n8n, you want to use the production webhook. But that's it. That's how we're defining it over here. I also have a setting which is saying speak during execution. So in that 1 second that we're waiting for n8n to kind of get the response back to us, instead of, or over here if the function takes over 2 seconds, instead of just kind of having some awkward silence, we're just saying, cool, let me check who's available to take your call. So yeah, that's a pretty nice and smooth system. And if I go across to this escalation handling process, so this overall prompt for the agent is pretty basic. I would just kind of start from scratch. I would just go into ChatGPT, explain your situation, and just ask it to build you out like a prompt. But you do want to have this kind of escalation handling process. So the first step is to get the escalation phone number, and then the second step is to plug that phone number into this call transfer function. So in n8n, that's what we're doing over here. We're basically landing that request from the tool call over here. We're not inbounding any specific, we're not getting any specific information from Retell. We don't need anything. What we're actually doing is just going to our escalation roster, which again is just this Google Sheets over here, and we're returning the entire data set, and then we're just splitting up and we're finding out, which day is it. And this is the exact same code as the other n8n scenario that we were looking at as the pre-call check. And all we're doing is just we're finding, which day of the week is it currently, and then we're filtering out the results from that Google Sheet to find who was working, for example, today, Sunday, who was working on a Sunday, and just return their phone number. And that's what we're doing over here. So if you want to edit this for your specific use case, like let's say you go into here and you want to be like, well, I've got 10 agents on my team. I've got Bart's doing 9 to 5 on Monday. Sunday is doing 5 to 10 p.m. on Monday. So I just need to be able to also determine what hour of the day, what hour it is of the day. You can just take this code, put it into ChatGPT and say, hey, can you just modify this to also search for hour by day, and just give it, the example of however your structure is. But chances are, if you're using your workforce management tool, it might already respond. Like if you got your tool linked over here as like a HTTP call, or if your module already exists, the response that you get might be already pre-filtered. It might just show you 3 agents that are currently available, and maybe even has their availability status. So it might even show, Bart is in, Sandhya is in, VG is in, but only VG is available. Bart and Sandhya are on calls, and they're actually not available right now. So it really depends on how, what your ecosystem of tools is. But this is a very basic way to do that. And then the final response here again is just the output is the phone number. That's really all we need. And then if I go across to Retell, so I'm going to zoom out, and just to look at this call transfer function over here, this is the built-in call transfer function from Retell, which is super handy. And like I mentioned earlier in the video, we're just using dynamic routing. So we're not actually using like static routing with a number in here. Whatever number we return from that previous function, and like I mentioned before, there's the video that I linked in the description of this video. I show you how to do, like, do they want to escalate, like, do they want to be transferred to a salesperson? Do they want to be transferred to a support person, to a French speaking, to someone from our, M&A department? Like for different use cases, you can actually just be super, super robust. And then this single function, this single tool call will dynamically get that phone number from that previous step. And then, you can change your settings over here. I left everything as default cold transfer. You can make it warm transfer if you wanted to as well. But for the purpose of this demo, just to kind of get started, I would just leave as many things as possible as demo. Okay, now the final n8n scenario that I want to look at is this webhook settings scenario over here, which is the agent level web. So this is the n8n scenario for post-call processing. So we're just receiving that payload directly into this webhook. So once again, you would just open up this webhook. I'm using the test URL, but you would just click production URL when you're ready to deploy this live. And then you would paste that directly into Retell into this section over here. So it's always the very first webhook of the scenario that you want to use as the URL for your tool calling. And then our next step over here is to basically filter out those call events. So looking at the documentation, like I mentioned before, every single phone call actually gets 3 pings. So there's 3 pings per call. First, when the call is started, which is just going to contain some very basic call information, most likely the number of the person calling, the number that was called, and maybe some like regional information, whatever is passed through, most likely from Twilio, because these guys will use Twilio and another provider in the back end. Then you have a call ended. So when a call is finished, either when here we have call complete, it's transferred, there's some error. So whenever the call is actually finished, you get this object, which contains a bunch of different variables from that call. One of the most important ones here will be, yes, the customer information, the number that called you, but also the conversation log. So you could technically just use this specific event in your post-call transcript in n8n, or you can use the call analyzed, which includes by default already the sentiment of the phone call and then a short summary of the phone call as well. We actually want to build the system out to be super robust. Like we actually want some like super clear reporting. So before you actually you just run the system as it is. You can just plug this into your n8n, connect everything up, and then away you go. But really, this reporting piece is the main thing that is going to be make or break for your system. Like it's cool enough to just introduce an AI caller even for after-hours support, but the ultimate goal is like, how do I make the experience better for customers? If the AI caller is actually just terrible in the first place, like how can I see that? So you want to have a couple of like indicators, and you would do that by having, again, a very basic Google Sheet. I think is a great starting point. Even if you want to put customer data back into your CRM, which you would do in this specific flow, like you might add your data into Google Sheet. You might have a CRM module over here that adds customer data into your HubSpot or whatever. But really, you also want to be tracking the encounters on Google Sheet. So you can get the summary, you can get the sentiment, you can get improvements or whatever the AI recommends it was needed for the phone call. But you might also want to pull out like, okay, what was the customer name? What was the contact reason? And you might have predefined contact reasons. You might have pre-purchase, post-purchase, warranty, troubleshooting, whatever high-level contact reasons you have. And especially if you're getting like 50 calls a day and the system is managing 50 calls a day, you want to be able to categorize like, all right, this is an after-hours phone support. We're getting 50 calls a day. Everyone's calling up about what are the opening hours. Okay, so in that case, we probably want to get the opening hours and make them a little bit more predominant on our website, just to make it easier for customers so that they don't need to call us in the first place, like kind of go up the line and give them the information. But that's exactly how you would build this reporting out. So each of these elements, you probably would start with this Google Sheets first, and you would just have all the different variables that you want to pull out from the phone call. And then you would reverse engineer and go into your OpenAI model, which if I just zoom into here, I'm using a very basic prompt just to give you an idea of how this looks. Let me see if I can actually pull this over. So I'm asking for an output as a JSON output, which I'm doing over here. I'm saying output is output content as JSON. So I want a structured output of a summary of the call. So I'm actually going to be feeding in the call transcript, which is what the agent said, what the customer said, and then basically the logs of the entire conversation. And I'm feeding it into this ChatGPT scenario. So as you see, I've got a very basic approach here. I've got a summary of the phone call. I've got the sentiment of the phone call that I want to pull out, improvements of the call. If you want to add to this, just make sure you put it the very last key value pair has to have no comma at the end. But if you want to add extra ones, you have to have a comma, like the second last one has to have one. So I'm going to put a comma here. And for example, I might say, customer name, and then I would put a space, and then, the customer's first name. Now, when you're creating this, make sure that your naming convention over here, there's no spaces. You can use underscores. That's the most common way to do this. Or you might even do something like, if I just show you just quickly, customer name, where the first letter of the first word is lowercase, and then the first letter of the second word and third and fourth word is uppercase. This is typical naming convention. Like that's the typical style of how you would do this. Now you don't want any spaces, because if you had a space like this and you want to feed this information into like Google Sheets, since all that is an API call, the space might actually break the API call depending on how your platform works. So just be mindful of this. You don't really want to have the spaces here. You probably want to keep them as strict as possible. Okay, so we have this out of the way. Note again, there's no comma at the end. And then I'm just feeding in the transcript. So it's already configured into the n8n scenario. Since it's not been executed now, it's showing up as empty, but we're feeding in as the user role, just a transcript of the conversation. So you could get a little bit more complex over here. You could even just enter like current time and date, and then you can go into ChatGPT, and you can just say, what's the regular expression for current time and date in the format of day, month, year, and then if you want to put time as well. So you can give a lot of context into this system over here. You can say, which department did they speak to? What was this call about? Depending on if you have multiple AI callers, you might have different bits of information that you feed into here. Again, I'm just giving you the very, something that you can just get rolling with, something very basic. And then your step over here is just taking the output of here, like output of this ChatGPT API call, which is all going to be structured JSON data set where you can easily just pick and choose and pop them into your Google Sheet. So what we're doing here is, we're placing all those different variables that we had from the ChatGPT output. For example, the date, this is just an expression that I'm using. The phone number is just from the phone call, but you have the conversation log from the phone call as well. Sorry, the actual AI stuff is summary, sentiment, and improvements. So this is just coming out of that specific JSON response from the ChatGPT API call. So you can download these, just tinker with them, or even just flick through each of these scenarios and kind of go into the blocks and see what's going on. There's nothing crazy. There's no wizardry going on at all. All the code that was written for the code blocks is just standard, like using ChatGPT. I prompted it saying, hey, I'm using n8n. I have a code block. I want to take the output of the previous code block or the previous block that's in this scenario. And then I want to process it, to find which agent is on today, for example. So as long as you give it context, you can even take screenshots of the previous block, how the information looks, or just copy and paste the entire JSON data set and just say, this is what we're working with. This is what we want to achieve. Please write me the script that I can put into the code block, and it'll be able to help you as well. Okay, so at this stage, we've gone over at a high level all the n8n scenarios, all the tool calling and some basic stuff for the AI agent. And I've gone over these scenarios as well. Now, in this part of the video, I'm going to show you how to actually connect your Twilio across to this n8n scenario. So when someone calls that Twilio number, it's actually going to kickstart this entire process. And then I'm going to go into the Retell agent and just show you how to set everything up as well. So how to add a knowledge base, how to get a phone number, how to plug that phone number into your agent, so that when you have the system over here, that it's going to be plugging directly into your Retell agent, nice and smooth, and you have no issues to get this running. Okay, so over in your Twilio console, you just have to find the phone number that you're going to be using. So I'm going to go to my active phone numbers, and I'm going to choose my phone number that I'm going to be, basically the phone number that I'm going to be listing on my support page, on my website. This is the phone number that you want your customers to call. And we're going to go to voice configuration. We're going to make sure that we're using webhook configuration over here. We have a post request, and this URL over here is going to be the actual URL of this pre-call router. So you're going to go into your webhook over here, and you're going to see test URL and production URL. We're going to click on production URL. We're going to copy it, go across to Twilio, and just paste it into here. So let me go Control V and scroll to the bottom and then hit save. Since this is my current configuration, I'm not going to be able to save anything. And that's all you do from Twilio. That's everything done. You're now forwarding all the calls into here. Once again, you don't have to be worried about it because our configuration here, it's actually checking for what are we going to be doing with the phone call. So you don't have to be worried about is everything going to go to the AI? No. When you're running this specific scenario and you kind of modify this to fit your use case, and if you don't have to have VIP. Realistically, you can just remove this, this, and this, and you can just see if it's business hours or not. If you've got a very basic, phone support setup. And for after hours, you can just route it to regular support. So you'd actually even simplify this switch over here. And then you can actually have it routing for after hours to your AI agent. So as soon as someone calls that Twilio number, if it's Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, it's going to go straight to your Zendesk or your whatever you're, whatever you're using. And for after hours, it's going to go directly into your AI. So that was Twilio setup. Now the next stage is to actually set up the rest of this Retell agent. Okay, so now that we're in the Retell interface, one quick thing I want to say is if you've just signed up for Retell and you want to start building out this agent, you can still get your phone number, you can still set up your agent, you can add a knowledge base, you can do all that stuff. But until you add a payment method, you are unable to call the agent. You just dial the number and it'll just go beep, beep, beep. So make sure whatever you do, if you actually want to test this and call the number and make it work, you want to be doing the pay as you go. Or if you actually just want to add a phone number, so I'm going to click this. If you just want to add a phone number and you want to do, you want to get a Twilio number that you already have in your system. So let's say you have a different Twilio number that you want to use for this Retell agent and you don't want to pay Retell a small premium for them to host the number for you. You can actually just do this connect to your number via SIP trunking. And what this means is it just gets that Twilio number that you already have that you're paying for, and then it's going to connect it up into Retell. So when, whenever someone calls that number, it's going to connect to your AI agent. This process is pretty simple. I can make a video on this, but there's already a pretty good video from Retell themselves. Might take you 5-10 minutes to do. And you don't have to be technical. There's no coding. It's actually super, super simple. But if you did want to have the the easiest way, ultimately easiest way is just buy a new number. Choose your provider. I will just go with Twilio for now. You can choose your actual area code, which is optional. You might want to have the same area code as where your business is based, just so it's a little bit more familiar to, like if you're doing cold transfers and it shows this number, you might want to just show it from the same region that you're based in anyway. Then you would hit save and you get charged $2 monthly fee for this. I think retail, if you're in USA, charges like $1.15. So it is percentage-wise quite a bit more. But at the end of the day, it's like an extra, just under $1 to run it through retail. And if you're not technical, you want the simplest, easiest, quickest setup, just buy a number through here. And that's what I've done over here. I've just bought the number through here. And then all you need to do for your configuration is just choose the specific agent that you're working with. So I've already got Dunder Mifflin built out. But in your case, you might need to build the agent out first. Then you'll come into these settings and then you would just choose Dunder Mifflin for inbound calls, Dunder Mifflin for outbound calls. I can make a part 2 of this to do outbound calls with retail as well. If you want to see that, please leave a comment below. And then everything else, just leave it as default. Don't worry about doing anything else at all. This is going to get you going. So the next step, or maybe not the next step, you could just do it whichever order you want. Probably the agent will be first. To add a knowledge base, this is also super simple. Just click this plus button over here, name your knowledge base, click on this documents, add documents, and you have 3 different options here. Now this is absolutely crazy, right? Because you can just add your website, and when you put your website into here, it gives you an option of which URLs you want to keep syncing. So you might have 10 pages on your website, 2 of them might be completely like unrelated to the AI caller, and then 8 of them might contain your products, your services, and your FAQs. So you can just press this button, enter the URL of your website, and then just choose which sites, which pages you want to be constantly synced. And you can choose a time frame of the syncing as well. So that's like super, super ultra easy to sync up. Or you can just upload your files dynamically, just scrape all your website, get all your internal, external documents, your policies, whatever you want to do, and just create a knowledge base like that. Or you can just add text. So you can just copy and paste large amounts of text. If you're just starting out, I think this is pretty good for like small businesses. For bigger businesses like enterprise, corporate, if you have like if you're a government customer, or I don't know, you have just like a bigger agency, I think uploading files is a little bit better, just because sometimes bigger websites will have things like images, maybe like different links that don't necessarily explain the topic in that one environment. So like that one page might require you to read 3 different pages to get the full context of information to be able to answer the question. And if that's the case, if you have a lot of like hyperlinks and links out and click here to see this and watch this YouTube video, it's better to actually just do the upload files manually and create a really good knowledge base in your files. Okay, so we'll just hit cancel for this. So now you have your phone number, it's plugged into your agent. Now you have a knowledge base plugged into your, not plugged into your agent just yet. So the next step is to create an agent. Now, if you guys want to see a proper like step-by-step walkthrough of how to use this interface or how to create like more complicated, more dynamic agents, then I'm happy to make that video. Once again, just comment below that you want to see more retail content. But for our purpose, for this like after hours phone support agent, I would just use single prompt agent. Single prompt agent is just like going into a chat GPT, like a custom GPT, giving it a prompt, and then you have the entire conversation there. Typically with the single prompt agent, you will define like what's the role of the agent, what's the context of the agent. For example, in our agent would say, hey, you're an after hours phone support agent, you answer basic FAQs. If the customer is like swearing or angry, you escalate it. Or if the customer is like wanting to speak with the salesperson to make an immediate purchase, you escalate to the salesperson. Like you just give, the 5 to 10 steps of that phone call, and then you will launch it. You have conversational agents, multi-prompt agents. This is just more for complex workflows, more complicated transitions, more ifs and then statements. But for our use case, we just do single prompt agent and then start from scratch. You can explore the different templates that they have, but starting from scratch is pretty good. And then you can go to ChatGPT and then you can just prompt it up to actually create a prompt for you. So let's do that together. So for example, I'm going to ChatGPT over here and I'm just going to say, you are an expert prompt creator. You specialize in prompting AI caller agents, use a single prompt to operate. Create a prompt for an inbound agent that works at, this company. Create a personality, a name. You could probably put more information into here and just like you create the personality for the agent that you want for your business. But add a personality, add a name. You can add a first sentence, like how you actually want to greet the customer when they're calling. You can add a bunch of different criteria. And then I always want to have like a context here. So like contextually, you're an after hours phone support. The purpose of you for this example is you're kind of acting like a call operator. You're receiving the phone call, you're answering basic FAQs, but the purpose is to transfer the customer to the correct department. Or if it's after hours, you might you're collecting information or whatever the actual context is, just make sure that you include it. And that for me actually gives a much better output for phone callers, for like other like custom GPT agents that you're making, even for text-based ones. Always putting in a context, I find that actually helps. And then we want our output to be in Markdown format in a code block. So let's just see if this follows the instructions. And the idea is that the Markdown format kind of helps us break the process of the phone call into multiple different steps. And we're using Markdown format to highlight like which text is more important to focus on. So you have like the heading Markdown format, then you have the bold. And yeah, this is just like this kind of format is what AIs or LLMs are used to working with, this kind of structured output. And then we have some phone numbers here. So okay, in this case, it actually already created the phone numbers for call forwarding. So we could use this if we wanted to. It has some basic examples of questions, which we could use, but I'm probably just gonna bypass that altogether. Copy this, and where am I? Into here, paste it in. I'm gonna hit save, and then we'll be adding all the functions. So I'm not gonna be running through the functions one by one here. I'm just gonna go back to the previous agent and basically show you the setup of all the different tool calls. It's just like 2 or 3, just so you can do it. But I've got everything plugged into that agent, so when I demo it, it's just gonna be easier to work with. So you would change the agent name here. So let's say Dunder Mifflin 02, which is the second agent that I've made. And you're able to change all your configuration, like your the engine that's going to be operating, like processing the conversation. You can change the voices. My go-to voice recently has been Brian, so I would just use this voice. And yeah, he's pretty good for customer support use cases, or just like kind of being like that call operator. I actually like this voice right now quite a lot. And okay, so if I go into my actual agent that we're going to be demoing with, we have our function. So if you're following along now, what you're going to be doing is adding an end call function, which is just a function that's built in from Retell, which is this end call function. And you can instruct the agent so the phone doesn't just stay open the entire time. You can instruct the agent to say, cool, when the conversation's at a natural closing point, just end the phone call. You have get escalation, which is our process before, which plugs into our n8n scenario. Once again, it's just that first webhook. We're using the test webhook here, but you want to make sure you're using the production webhook. And you're pulling out that phone number. And then you have the call transfer, which is another default tool call from Retell. And then this is the instruction you're putting into there. Escalate the phone number to the number obtained from the get escalation function just before. Now, just so you see how we have this function call situation, you can just copy and paste this into the AI. Just take a screenshot of the screen right now, paste it into your chat GPT that's making the instructions, and say, make sure you have this specific instruction for call transfers. Just use the same naming that you're using here as the same name as the tool call. And then I think I have here call wrap up. So wrap the call and end the call, and actually here the summary that the actual generated instructions, they're not even listing this. So you would just take this and say, use the end call function to end the call, And that's how you would build this out. But really, you would just kind of start like iterating through this prompt over here, and you can call the agent right now and then like run through the entire system. A cool hack to make sure that your escalation stuff is working appropriately is if I just zoom in on this test window, I actually can't zoom in too much. I'm just going to say, can you transfer me to a human? So I'm going to demonstrate the get escalation tool call. So if I go to this tool over here, I'm just going to hit test workflow, and where is Retell? Let me send this. And now we're going to be invoking this get escalation function, or this get escalation tool. And you can see that we had a tool invocation and we received a phone number. Oh, wait, let me check. Okay. So as we're executing this tool, we're sending a message back to the customer, which is, let me see who is available, which if I click this open, it's this little text over here. Let me see who is available. And the tool result was the phone number 789. So let's confirm why it was 789. If we go across to Retell, go to our escalation roster, and we would have fed all of that into the scenario. So 789 is VG, and today is Sunday. So that's how we return the 789 extension to be forwarded to. And if I go back into this scenario, I can actually see here. So all this stuff on the left-hand side is just the entire like blob of info. So we've got VG, Steph, Sandhya, and Bart. All the information is returned with the dynamic phone numbers and which day they're working. And since today is Sunday, it's returning today's information, which is the phone number like this. So as you can see, in this specific n8n scenario, we returned the phone number 789, and it made its way nicely through this tool result into here, and then into the transfer call function. So you can see as we execute, this one I can actually just zoom into, I can transfer you to a team member who can assist you. Transfer destination number plus 789. So this is obviously not a phone number. And in this specific demo, it's not going to forward your call because it's not text, it's not AI, like it's not call based. But this is the number and how it was dynamically inserted. So that's super easy. That's really nice to check the conversation. For your knowledge base, I've already got Dunder Mifflin in here, but you would just add your other knowledge base that you have just created, and you would plug it into here to use for your AI agent. All the other settings for now, like if you want a more dynamic tutorial, it's the third time I'm saying it, just ping me, just say Bart created retail tutorial. I've left everything as default. My actual approach when I'm using new tools, trying new systems, is just go on default, see what happens, and then modify from there. So, I mean, probably max call duration, you might want it to be 10 minutes, 15. I don't know how long your conversations are. That could be a good thing to report on, just see how long the conversation is when you're building out your Google Sheets reporting for post-call reporting. But yeah, I would leave everything just on like whatever default as much as possible. I wouldn't add this data into here where you have an n8n scenario. And then if there's nothing sensitive that you want to leave out, you just leave everything static. And then yeah, your URL over here is just the URL of that post-call n8n scenario. So let me just give you a test of this just to show you how this works. So let's open up the pre-call router and I'm going to hit test workflow. Okay, so for the first example, I've got my Twilio plugged into here already. It's going to run through and I've just set my phone number that I'm going to be calling from in my VIP number tab. So it's going to pick this up and it should actually just take me into here. So when we go into here, that message that we're going to see is forwarding you to our VIP line. So let me call this number now.
Forwarding your call to our VIP line.
Awesome. And our VIP line doesn't exist because the output was 789. And again, that's just VG who's working today. So it's obviously not able to complete that phone call. But now I'm going to take my number away from the VIP line. And when I call, it should actually just forward it directly into my AI agent. So both of these are going right now into my AI agent. That one I haven't configured to my call center or business line. Okay, so now let's actually try it out for after business hours. So yeah, right now it is Sunday and it's definitely not business hours. So let's test this workflow and let's give that number a call.
Forwarding your call now.
Hi, this is Dwight from Dunder Mifflin Paper Company. How can I help you today?
Hey Dwight, how you doing?
Oh, well, as an AI, I don't experience time or emotions, but if I did...
Okay, and there you go. So now we have our VIP plugged in. We're checking for the actual VIP, sending to a VIP customer based on a value from a Google Sheet. We then have a after hours phone support going into here. And then during hours, which is obviously not configured right now for this specific workflow because it's outside of business hours, we could just plug it into our Zendesk. So if you want to plug it into your Zendesk or your Freshdesk, Gorgeous, whatever you're using, you already have a phone number there, or you might need to create a separate phone number for Zendesk. So you just go into your configuration, you would add a call to phone number. And once again, you can just buy numbers through Zendesk's interface or through your CRM interface, and then just pull out that number, whatever it is, and then you can just hard code it into here. You would just paste that number into where this dial section is. And then as soon as you get, business hours forward to your actual CRM, it will just automatically go across and it will ping Zendesk, and then you'll get like a notification. So if you're using like Zendesk or Twilio Flex or whatever your call center software is, it'll just be like a regular phone call coming into your system, and your agents will be able to pick it up and work with it just as normal. So yeah, that's super cool as well. Okay guys, so at this stage, we've gone through the entire system. We've looked at how to basically build out n8n flows to facilitate the pre-routing of a Twilio phone call. We then looked at how to plug that phone call for VIP customers, for during business hours, for after hours phone support. We looked at creating an AI agent in Retell that would answer those questions for us, for customers. We also figured out how to do dynamic call routing depending on which team, which person, which language, which region, which time we want to be forwarding that call to, all using very basic n8n scenarios. And then we looked at how to plug everything together. So we went into Twilio, made a very quick setting of putting a URL into that setting space. We then looked at how to connect everything up into our Retell agent, how to buy a phone number, create a knowledge base, how to create a prompt using ChatGPT, how to basically plug the entire system together. So at this stage, guys, you're ready to just download the resources, go ahead and create this after hours caller for yourself. Once again, just make sure you build out the reporting tab to be super good. Like just plan out what would make this a success for you. Like what's a definition of success, build those metrics into the Google Sheet, and then kind of reverse engineer your scenario over here with what you want from ChatGPT coming out. So that's the ultimate goal here, is make sure it's successful. How do you do that? That's a tool that you can use to make that happen, that simple process. But if you want to hand building this out for your business, if you're an enterprise, if you're a government school, if you're just, whatever you are, if you want this built out for you, I can work with a bunch of different systems within your existing frameworks, and I can build out something that will actually work for you, and I can help you grow it long term to replace other outdated technology that you might have, or using these very basic, simple workflows that, just get the job done. All right, and if you want to reach out to me, please reach out via my email. It's going to be in the description of this video. Otherwise, please like, subscribe, show me some support. I would love that. And good luck, guys. Have a nice day. See ya.